Welcome to the English Tales, where every story whispers a little magic and every word weaves a world of wonder. Settle in and let the tales begin. Today, listen to What is the Foundation of Human Life by Leo Tolstoy. Madhav was a shamar by caste, who neither had a house nor land. He lived in a hut with his wife and children, earning a living through hard labor. Wages were low, and food was expensive. Whatever he earned, he spent on food. The entire family survived the winter with a single blanket, which had now become tattered. For a whole year, he had been thinking of buying another piece of clothing. By cutting down on food, he had managed to save 3 rupees, while 5 rupees were due from the villagers. One day, he decided to collect the 5 rupees from the villagers and buy some clothing. He left home and first went to a farmer's house in the village. The farmer was not home, and his wife said, "We don't have money right now. We will give it later." He then went to another house, but there too, he did not get any money. After that, he went to a shopkeeper and asked for clothes on credit. The shopkeeper said, "We don't give credit to such paupers who will chase after you for payment. Go away." Disheartened, he started walking back home. On the way, he thought, "What a strange thing it is that I work all day, yet I can't even fill my stomach. Before I left, my wife had told me to bring clothes at any cost. Now, what should I do? No one is willing to give me credit. The farmers say they have no money right now, and to take it later. They may have empty hands, but how will I manage? They have homes, cattle, and everything, while I have only my body. Their granaries are full, but I have to buy every single grain. 3 rupees are spent just on food in 7 days. What should I do? Where should I go? Oh God!" Thinking this, he reached near a temple and saw something white lying on the ground. It was dark, so he couldn't see clearly. Madhav thought that someone had been robbed of his clothes. "What does it matter to me?" he thought. "I better not get involved in this, or I might land in trouble. Let me go on my way." He had walked a little further when a sense of regret struck him. How heartless I am! What if this poor soul is starving? How shameful it is that I am leaving him in such a state and walking away. He turned back and stood beside the man. As Madhav approached, he saw that the man was a healthy young fellow, merely suffering from the cold. The moment he looked at him, Madhav felt a surge of compassion. Removing his coat, he said, "This is not the time for a conversation. Wear this coat and come with me." The man's body was clean, his face kind, and his limbs well-formed. He appeared to be of noble stature. Madhav helped him put on the coat and said, "Friend, now come along. We can talk later." The man looked at Madhav with gratitude, but said nothing. Madhav asked, "Why don't you speak?" "It's freezing here. Come home. If you can't walk, take this stick and use it for support." The man followed behind Madhav. Madhav asked, "Where do you live?" The man replied, "I do not belong to this place." Madhav said, "I thought as much, for I know everyone here. How did you end up near the temple?" The man responded, "That I cannot tell you." Madhav inquired, "Has someone wronged you?" The man replied, "No one has wronged me. I am simply facing the consequences of my own actions. God has punished me. Madhav said, "No doubt, God is the master of all, but one still needs food to eat and a home to live in. Where do you intend to go now?" The man answered, "Wherever God takes me." Madhav was astonished. The man's words were gentle and sincere. He did not seem like a fraud, yet he refused to reveal anything about himself. Madhav thought he must have suffered some great misfortune. Madhav said, "Brother, come home and rest for a while. Then we'll figure things out." The two of them started walking. On the way, Madhav reflected, "I had come to buy clothes, and here I have given away my own. I am returning home with a half-clad man. Will Malti be pleased with all this? Certainly not. But why should I worry? Compassion is the greatest virtue of mankind." Meanwhile, Madhav's wife, Malti, hurriedly chopped wood, fetched water, cooked food, fed the children, ate her own meal, and set aside food for her husband. As she stitched a tear in a kurta, she worried, "What if the shopkeeper cheats my husband? He is too simple and never deceives anyone. Even a child could fool him. 8 rupees is a lot of money. We could buy good clothes with that. Last winter was so harsh. He was already late when he left. But now, he should have been back by this time." Star. Just then, she heard footsteps. Malti stepped outside and saw Madhav. With him was a man, bareheaded. Madhav's coat was draped around the stranger's shoulders. Madhav carried no bundle in his hands and stood there, his head lowered in shame. Seeing this, Malti's heart sank with disappointment. "This must be some fraud," she thought, frowning as she waited to see what he would do. Madhav said, "If the food is ready, please bring it." Malti was furious, but remained silent, standing still. Madhav could sense her burning rage. "Madhav, haven't you cooked the food?" Malti angrily, "Yes, I have, but not for you. You went to buy clothes, didn't you? What have you done? You even gave away your own coat. Where did you find this fraud? This isn't a charity house." Madhav, "Malti, enough. It is not right to accuse someone without knowing the truth. At least ask who he is." Malti, "First, tell me where you threw away the money." Madhav, "Here, take your 3 rupees. The villagers didn't give anything." Malti, taking the money, "I don't have food for every beggar in the world." Madhav, again, the same thing. "At least listen to what he has to say." Malti, "Enough. I have heard enough. I never even wanted to get married. You are nothing but a burden." Madhav tried to explain, but she refused to listen. She began recalling old arguments from the past 10 years and started shouting. In a fit of rage, she tore Madhav's jacket and stormed out of the house. But she stopped midway, turned around and said, "If he were truly a decent man, he wouldn't be naked. Where did you even find him?" Madhav, "That's exactly what I wanted to tell you. He was sitting naked near the temple outside the village. Just think, is this the season for someone to sit outside without clothes? By God's will, I happened to pass by, or who knows if he would have lived or died. We don't know what disaster has befallen him. I gave him my coat and brought him here. Look, don't be angry. Anger is the root of sin. One day, we all have to leave this world." Malti wanted to say something, but seeing the man, She fell silent. He sat still, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. "Madhav, my dear, don't you have any love for God?" Hearing these words and looking at the man, Malti's heart softened instantly. She quickly got up, brought food, and placed it before him, saying, "Please eat." Seeing Malti's kindness, the man's face lit up, and he smiled. After finishing his meal, Malti asked, "Where have you come from?" "Man, I am not from this place." "Malti, how did you end up near the temple?" "Man, I cannot say." "Malti, did someone rob you?" "Man, no one did. It is God's punishment for me." "Malti, were you really sitting there naked?" "Man, yes, shivering from the cold. Madhav saw me, felt pity, gave me his coat, and brought me here. And you, out of kindness, fed me. May God bless you both." Malti handed him a kurta. That night, as she lay beside her husband, she said, "Malti, are you listening?" "Madhav, yes." "Malti, we are out of food. What will we eat tomorrow? I might have to ask the neighbor." "Madhav, if we live, we will find food somewhere." "Malti, that man seems like a good person. Why won't he tell us who he is?" "Madhav, I don't know. He must have his reasons." "Malti, we help others, but no one helps us." Madhav gave no answer, turned away, and went to sleep. Morning arrived. Madhav woke up while the children were still asleep. Malti had gone to the neighbor's house to ask for some grain. The stranger sat on the ground, gazing at the sky, but his face now appeared content. "Madhav, friend, the stomach needs food, and the body needs clothing. Therefore, work is necessary. Do you know any trade?" "Star, man, I don't know any work." "Star, Madhav, practice is a great thing. If a person wishes, he can learn anything. Star, man, I am willing to learn. Please teach me." "Star, Madhav, what is your name?" "Star, man, Maiku." "Star, Madhav, brother Maiku, if you don't want to share your story, that's fine, but you must do some work. Learn to make shoes and stay here." "Star, Maiku, very well." Star Madhav then began teaching Maiku how to thread stitches, wax the thread, and sew shoes. Within 3 days, Maiku became so skilled at shoemaking that he seemed as if he had always been a cobbler. He never stepped out of the house and spoke very little. Since the day Malti had given him food, he had laughed only once. After that, he never smiled again. Slowly, a year passed. Word spread everywhere that Madhav's worker, Maiku, made such strong and durable shoes that no one else could match his craftsmanship. Madhav started receiving a lot of work, and his earnings increased significantly. One day, while Madhav and Maiku were working, a carriage arrived. A wealthy man stepped out and walked toward the hut. Malti quickly opened the door, and he entered inside. Madhav stood up and greeted him with respect. He had never seen such a handsome man before. Madhav himself was thin, Maiku even thinner, and Malti was merely a skeleton. But this man seemed to belong to another world. His face was radiant, his chest broad and his neck firm, as if his entire body was made of iron. Man. Who is the master craftsman among you? Star. Madhav. Sir, I am. Star. Man. Showing a piece of leather. Do you see this leather? Star. Madhav. Yes, sir. Star. Man. Do you know what kind of leather this is? Star. Madhav. Maharaj, this leather is of very fine quality. Star. Man. Fine quality? Fool, you've probably never seen leather like this before. This is German leather, worth 20 rupees. Star. Madhav. Fearfully. Indeed, Maharaj, I have never seen such leather before. Star. Man. All right, can you make boots out of it? Star. Madhav. Yes, sir, I can. Star. Man. Yes, sir, won't do. Understand well what kind of leather this is and who the owner is. If a single stitch comes undone within a year, or if the boots lose their shape, you will be sent to prison. Otherwise, you will receive 10 rupees as payment. Star. Madhav glanced at Maiku and asked in a low voice whether he should take the order. Maiku nodded in agreement. Madhav then started taking the man's measurements. Man, make sure to take the measurements correctly. The boots must not be too tight. Looking at Maiku. Who is this? Star. Madhav. He is my worker. Star. Man. To Maiku. Listen carefully. The boots must last for a full year, no less. Star. Maiku, however, seemed completely indifferent to the man's words. He sat there, lost in his own thoughts, smiling to himself. Man. Angrily. Fool! Are you listening or just laughing? Make sure to complete the boots quickly. There should be no delay. Star. As the man left, he accidentally hit his head on the door frame. Madhav remarked, "His head is like iron. He nearly broke the door." Star. Malti added, "The rich are always powerful. Even Yamraj, the god of death, wouldn't dare touch this man, let alone anyone else." Star. After the man left, Madhav turned to Maiku and said, "Brother, we've taken this job, but let's be careful, no mistakes should happen. This is expensive leather, and that man is very short-tempered. You have a steady hand now, so you cut the leather, and I will do the stitching." Star. Maiku began cutting the leather. Malti, who had seen her husband make boots every day, was puzzled by Maiku's cutting technique. She wondered, maybe this is how boots for wealthy people are made, and said nothing. By noon, Maiku had finished cutting and assembled a pair of slippers instead of boots. When Madhav finished his meal and returned, he was shocked to see slippers instead of boots. His heart pounded as he thought, Maiku has been working with me for a whole year, and he has never made such a mistake before. What has happened to him today? That man ordered boots, but he has made slippers. What will I tell him now? Where will I find such expensive leather again? Star. Madhav. To Maiku, panicking. "Friend, what have you done? He asked for boots, didn't he? Now I'm doomed." Star. Just then, a man arrived at the door and called out. Malti opened it. It was the same servant who had accompanied the wealthy man earlier. Servant. Ram Ram. You haven't made the boots yet, have you? Star. Madhav. Yes, I am making them. Star. Servant. My master has passed away. Now, making boots is pointless. Star. Madhav. What? Star. Servant. He couldn't even make it home. He passed away in the carriage itself. My mistress has ordered that you make slippers from that leather instead. Star. Madhav. Happily. Here, take the slippers. Star. The servant took the slippers and left. Maiku had been living with Madhav for 6 years now. In all this time, he had only laughed twice. Otherwise, he would silently sit and do his work. Madhav was very pleased with him, but always feared that he might run away. Because of this fear, Madhav never asked him anything about his past again. One day, Malti was lighting the stove. The children were playing in the courtyard, and Madhav and Maiku were sitting and making shoes when a child came running and said, "Uncle Maiku, look, that woman is coming with 2 little girls." Startled, Maiku looked up and saw a woman draped in a shawl, walking towards them with 2 small girls. The girls looked identical, with the only difference being that one of them was limping. When the old woman entered, Madhav asked, "Mother, what do you need?" Star. She replied, "I need shoes made for these girls." Star. Madhav said, "Very well." Star. As he took the measurements, he noticed that Maiku was staring at the girls as if he had seen them before. Old woman. "One of this girl's legs is crippled. Take her measurements separately. The other 3 feet are the same. These girls are twins." Star. Madhav. After taking the measurements. "How did she become lame? Was she born this way?" Star. Old woman. "No, her mother crushed her leg herself." Star. Malti. "So, you're not their mother?" Star. Old woman. "No, sister. I am neither their mother nor a relative. These are not my daughters. I have raised them." Star. Malti. "Even so, you love them a lot?" Star. Old woman. "Why wouldn't I love them? I have fed them my own milk and brought them up. I had a son of my own, but God took him away. I love these girls even more than him." Star. Malti. "Then whose daughters are they?" Star. Old woman. 6 years ago, within the span of a week, their parents passed away. Their father died on a Tuesday and their mother on a Friday. 3 days after the father's death, these girls were born. Their parents were my neighbors. Their father was a woodcutter. One day, while cutting wood in the forest, he was crushed under a falling tree and died. That same week, these girls were born. As soon as they were born, their mother also passed away. The next day, when I went to visit her, I found her lying dead. While she was dying, she had turned in her sleep, and in doing so, this girl's leg got trapped under her. The villagers performed her funeral rites. The parents were poor, without a single penny to their name. Everyone was wondering who would take care of the girls. At that time, I had a 2-month-old baby in my arms. The villagers said, "Until some arrangement is made, you should take care of them." So, I took them in. At first, I did not feed this crippled girl milk because I thought she wouldn't survive. But eventually, I felt pity for her and started feeding her too. by God's grace, I had so much milk that even after feeding all 3 children, it would overflow. My own son passed away, but these 2 survived. Our situation is much better now. My husband works in a large factory. How could I not love them? They are the very foundation of my life. Start saying this. The old woman embraced both girls tightly against her chest. Multi. It is true, a person can live without parents, but they cannot survive without God. Star. As this conversation was going on, suddenly the entire hut was filled with light. Everyone turned and saw that Maiku, sitting in a corner, was laughing. The old woman left with the girls, and Maiku stood up, bowed before Madhav and Malti, and said, "Master, I now take my leave. The Almighty has shown mercy upon me. If I have made any mistakes, please forgive me." Star, Madhav and Malti saw that Maiku's body was radiating with divine light. Madhav prostrated before him and said, "I now understand that you are not an ordinary man. I can neither keep you here nor ask you any questions. But please tell me one thing. When I first brought you to my home, you were very sorrowful. When my wife gave you food, you laughed. When that wealthy man came to order boots, you laughed again. And today, when the old woman came with the girls, you laughed for the 3rd time. What is the mystery behind this? And why is your face glowing with such divine radiance?" Star. Maiku. The reason for this radiance is that the Almighty has shown me mercy. I have now paid for my past actions. God had sent me to this mortal world to understand 3 things. And now that I've understood them, I'm free. That is why I laughed 3 times. First, when your wife gave me food. Second, when the wealthy man arrived. And third, today, after hearing the old woman's story. Star. Madhav, why did God punish you? What are these 3 things? Please tell me as well. Star. Maiku. I was punished because I disobeyed God's command. I am a divine being. Once, the Lord sent me to the mortal world to take the life of a woman. When I arrived, I saw that the woman was extremely weak and lying on the ground. Beside her, 2 newborn twin girls were crying. Seeing me as the messenger of death, she pleaded, "My husband has been crushed under a tree and has died. I have neither a sister nor a mother. Who will take care of my daughters? Please, do not take my life yet. Let me raise them. A child cannot survive without parents." I felt pity for her words. So, when I returned to Yama, the Lord of Death, I humbly requested, "My Lord, I could not take the woman's life because her newborn daughters had no one to care for them. A child cannot survive without parents." Yama replied, "Go back and take her life immediately. And until you have learned these 3 truths, 1. What remains in a human being? 2. What does a human being never receive? 3. What is the foundation of human life? You shall not be allowed to return to heaven." So I returned to the mortal world and took the woman's life. As she was dying, she turned in her sleep, crushing one of her daughter's legs. I then tried to fly back to heaven, but a storm arose. My wings were torn away, and I fell near a temple. Star. Now Madhav and Malti understood who Maiku truly was. They were overjoyed, feeling blessed to have had the divine sight of a celestial being. Maiku continued, "Before I took human form, I did not know the suffering of cold, heat, hunger, or thirst. But upon coming to this mortal world, I realized what pain truly is. I was tormented by hunger and the freezing cold. I tried to enter the temple for shelter, but it was locked. So I sat by the roadside, seeking refuge from the wind. At dusk, I saw a man approaching. He was the first human I had seen since coming to this world. His face was so terrifying that I closed my eyes. I could not bear to look at him. He was muttering about how he would provide for his wife and children, where he would get clothes for them, and so on. I thought to myself, here I am, dying of hunger and cold, and yet he is only lamenting his own problems, offering me no help at all. He walked past me, and I lost all hope. But then, after a while, he returned. This time, due to his kindness, his face appeared beautiful to me. Madhav, that man was you. When you first brought me home, Malti's face was even harsher than yours, as she had no trace of compassion. But when she kindly brought me food, the hardness of her face disappeared. That was when I realized that the true essence of humanity is love. That is why I laughed for the first time. Star, a year later, that wealthy man came to have his boots made. I laughed then because he was commissioning boots to last a year, unaware that he would not live past that evening. That was when I understood the second great truth. Man never receives what he desires. And so, I laughed a second time. Star, 6 years later, today, when this old woman came, I finally realized with certainty that God alone is the foundation of all life, no one else. That is why I laughed for the third time. Star Maiku's body began to glow with divine radiance, making it impossible to look directly at him. He continued speaking. Look, all living beings are sustained by love. Mere sustenance alone is not enough for life. That woman had no idea who would raise her daughters. That wealthy man had no idea that he would die in his carriage before even reaching home. No one knows what will happen tomorrow, whether they will need clothes or a shroud. Star, I survived in this human body only because you and your wife showed me love. Those orphaned girls grew up because an old woman, out of love, chose to nourish them with her milk. The truth is that living beings do not survive merely by their own efforts. Love is what keeps them alive. I once believed that the purpose of life was simply to exist. But now I am certain that life's true purpose is not just to live, but to live with love. Star. This is why God does not reveal to anyone what they themselves need, but instead teaches them what is needed for others. He desires that all living beings remain united in love. I have realized with absolute certainty that love is the foundation of life. A loving person dwells in God, and God dwells in a loving person. In essence, there is no difference between love and God. Star. Saying this, the celestial being ascended back to the heavens. Thank you for joining us on this journey through words and wonder. Until our next tale, stay curious and keep dreaming.